Gorbachev stood for. By contrast, Zhao embraced Gorbachev's views on openness, freedom, and democracy. Deng was wary of Gorbachev and his policies, and in fact lectured and warned Gorbachev about the dangers of political and social reform. The people should have the freedom to make money, but not the freedom to challenge or even question the policies of the government. Outside the Great Hall of the People, students and their supporters were calling for the resignation of Peng, Deng, Yang, and other right-wing leaders, demanding that they step down from power. What they hoped is that the conservatives would resign, leaving Zhao and the reformers in power. Zhao and Gorbachev had a lot in common and a lot to talk about. Both were advocates of freedom of speech, openness, accountability, and other democratic principles. Zhao had a long history of championing reform and freedom. During the 1987 Party Congress, Zhao Ziyang was finally able to get the principles of dialogue to become official policy. But he made many enemies who distrusted the concept of openness and who did not trust Zhao or the Chinese people. It was during Zhao's meeting with Gorbachev that Zhao admitted that Deng was in fact in charge of the country and had the final say over all decisions. He explained that Deng, although an advocate of economic reform, was not willing to make social or political reforms and wanted to use the military to crush the democracy movement. Deng was furious at Zhao for letting Gorbachev and the world know that Deng was the man in charge. Deng was even more furious with the students and the people of Beijing. Deng was the supreme leader of China. His meeting with Gorbachev, the supreme leader of the Soviet Union, was to be a grand diplomatic achievement. Instead, the students had embarrassed him and his government on international TV. Deng began to hunger for revenge. The students had made him look foolish, and Zhao made him look inept. Indeed, Deng could not control the people of China, and he could not even control the food in his own mouth. Across Beijing, over 1 million people from every imaginable occupation and age group were now cheering on the students and joining in the democracy movement. Workers, doctors, lawyers, and reporters from every newspaper, all demanding democracy, freedom of speech, and the end to corruption. Hundreds of thousands of people across China were now supporting the students, with protests and demonstrations breaking out at dozens of cities and universities. Everyone wanted to join in. They wanted to be part of history, and people brought their husbands, wives, children, and their parents, all chanting and singing and shouting slogans demanding freedom and democracy. Although the students were not calling for a revolution, revolution was taking place. Suddenly newspapers were reporting the truth, and the people were giving voice to long simmering complaints. Suddenly it seemed safe to voice opinions, to disagree with the dictators, to call for change and the end of oppression, and everybody wanted to join in. Fasting students were also starting to drop with alarming frequency, many driven away by ambulance to be treated at local hospitals. Organizers held up placards showing the number of students who had fallen. Over 342 students had collapsed. They were fainting at the rate of 1 every 6 minutes. After meeting with Gorbachev, Zhao Ziyang stood on the roof of the Great Hall